When it comes to Resident Evil remakes, there are two specific games that I would consider the standard, aka the best remakes. The first one, of course, is the remake of Resident Evil 1, released on March 22nd, 2002. Resident Evil Remake is arguably known as the best Resident Evil game ever made, and I should definitely say that it perfected survival horror. And if there is a game that you want to play to get into the Resident Evil timeline, it's Resident Evil 1 Remake for sure. The second one is the remake of Resident Evil 2, released on January 25th, 2019. This remake was absolutely amazing, modernizing this remake with the third person over the shoulder perspective and the stalking of the Mr. X tyrant that basically changed on how you approach the RPD as soon as he spawns, worrying if he was going to be right around the corner or not. It was just an absolute blast for me. RE2 Remake is a beloved remake that I would believe is held to a high standard. And of course there was definitely Resident Evil 3 Remake that was remade, but it definitely had like its own mixed reviews. Some people actually end up enjoying it though. I don't think it's necessarily a bad game. It's just it kind of underachieved compared to Resident Evil 2. It felt like a DLC to me, but yeah, that's just how I felt about it. But now let's put these games in the past and talk about RE games Capcom should remake. I made multiple RE4 remake videos on this channel, so I'm not talking about that game, but other games like Resident Evil Code Veronica, which is the most requested game, and Resident Evil Outbreak, which is severely underrated and was ahead of its time. Those are the main two we would love to see remade in the new Unreal Engine or whatever they're remaking it in. And even people have been like wanting to see a Resident Evil 1 remake again, like just a Resident Evil 1 remake like 2.0, something like that. And within that, on how I've seen like mods within the community about the first person perspective in the Spencer Mansion, or the recent mod about over the shoulder third person perspective with in the Spencer Mansion. There was a mod on the Residents of Evil YouTube channel. I'll link that down below in the description. But yeah, within on how I've seen the mods, it's like I wouldn't even blame Capcom one bit for going with it if they ended up remaking that game. I'm 100% down with it. But there is one game that I think everyone is overlooking in terms of an RE game that needs a remake, and that game is Resident Evil 0. Resident Evil 0 is probably one of the most polarizing games in the franchise in terms of the fixed camera era of Resident Evil games. Before the HD remaster, RE0 was originally supposed to be released on the Nintendo 64's disk drive add-on, but due to compatibility issues, Resident Evil 0 basically stopped development and it was put on the shelf, but surprisingly, it got its remake/remaster on the GameCube in 2002, months after the release of Resident Evil 1 Remake. You play as two characters in Resident Evil 0, stars rookie officer Rebecca Chambers and escaped criminal Billy Cohen. Both good characters in my eyes. You discover the history of the T-Virus by fighting zombies on a high-speed train, also discovering Umbrella's training facility, and much more as you progress throughout the game. Now, let me just say this with all due respect to the people that really like Resident Evil 0. For me, I did not enjoy this game at all. There were some good things that I liked about this game, but the bad things definitely overshadowed this game by a whole lot. So let's start off with the pros before we get into the cons. Number one is definitely the train sequence and the opening. It was absolutely amazing. I loved it though, and it really got me excited to play the rest of the game. And the atmosphere that includes the train, that includes the Umbrella training facility and many others in RE0, it's great, absolutely though. So let's get into some sort of cons, for me at least. If you guys ended up enjoying this game, I'm 100% fine with it. A controversial thing Capcom did in this game was removing the item box and dropping items if your inventory was too full. Switching characters between Rebecca and Billy was a cool feature as well, but from my experience I couldn't get the hang of it. Now, I know there are more good things about this game, but then again I have to get into the negatives. Billy Cohen not being able to combine and mix herbs didn't really sit well with me at all. I mean, I get Rebecca having that ability makes sense since she is a medic on the STARS Bravo team. I believe she's on the Bravo team and not the Alpha team. But Billy being an ex-military person, just not being able to have that ability is just really weird to me. I don't know why. Managing two characters and commanding the other one to do like something though, whether it's to like, remain stationary, not shoot, and shoot. I mean, it was a little bit frustrating for me, and again, I couldn't get the hang of it, but that was on like my first playthrough. But let's get into two specific enemies that I could not stand in this game, and number one is without a doubt the Eliminators. These guys are definitely the definition of bullet sponges. It took me almost more than 6 shotgun bullets, I remember, to kill one of them, and I wasn't even on the hardest difficulty. These BOWs were kind of a reason why my experience with RE0 wasn't the best for me. Second enemy was the Leechmen. Now, I know their weakness is fire, but what really pissed me off about them was the long range attacks they had. Also, if you ended up killing them without fire and just straight up bullets, they would explode, causing HP damage if you were close enough to them, and the leeches remaining from that explosion would attack you after, which, again, you can also lose HP. And, of course, there was definitely James Marcus. Now, what's funny is that I don't even call him James Marcus, I just call him Opera Man, because the one thing that like people remember him for is like just singing opera to summon like leech monsters and stuff like that. And it was just the weirdest combo to me because opera and Resident Evil don't really go good. I mean, if it's a part of like the video game soundtrack, then like I don't have a problem with that. But as like the main thing that like what stands out about the villain in a Resident Evil game, that's just really weird, and it's a really weird combo, and it didn't turn out very well. Like this isn't fucking Saturday Night Live special featuring Adam Sandler as Opera Man or some shit like that. But now let's get into some reasons why Resident Evil 0 definitely needs a remake. Number 1, co-op. Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6 are very polarizing games as well, same with Resident Evil 0, but the one reason those games got sales and some sort of replayability was the co-op. Now imagine this for a second. Resident Evil 2 Remake, but Leon and Claire are working together. Now, of course, Billy and Rebecca may have an occasional split up, but that depends on how Capcom writes and develops the story. But if you are doing like a single player Resident Evil 0, I believe the switching character ability should stay, but there definitely should be a co-op mode as well, where you could just choose your character and just straight up go throughout the story. And I think it would be very fun, and I think it would bring a different factor to what can make the RE0 potential remake very, very good. Number 2, reworking James Marcus's character. What's insane is that we don't even consider James Marcus as a good villain, but we should if they rework his character. I have not encountered one person in real life or even on social media that likes his character in Resident Evil 0. It was definitely a missed opportunity because he is one of the founding members of the Umbrella Corporation with Oswald E. Spencer and Edward Ashford, so reworking his character and like probably getting rid of the opera part to like summon the BOW leeches or whatever, it would definitely be a bonus if they would like to do that, so I don't have a problem with that. I think it'd be best if they reworked his character if they remade this game. Number 3, nerfing the Eliminators and Leechmen. So both of them are definitely one of the worst enemies in all of the Resident Evil franchise. Nerfing them can make the remake extremely fun. For the Eliminators, I would definitely put them on like just a lower level of the RE2 remake lickers. Like, the Lickers were really good in Resident Evil 2 Remake, and I think if you put, like, the Eliminators, like, a level or two down below them, though, and, like, I think it would be better to, like, do that instead of not making them the bullet sponges that they are in Resident Evil 0 in general. And for the Leechmen, I would definitely get rid of the long-range attacks. Like, if you're mid-range or close-range, then I'm like, okay, I'm totally fine with that, that's no problem, but in terms of, like, long-range, like, if he's, like, 10 feet apart and he's still attacking you, it's like, okay, we gotta chill out with that. But you guys know what I mean. Number 4, inventory. Now, again, this is controversial. I wasn't a big fan of the inventory management, but there may be a way to either make it better and modernize it. Resident Evil 5's inventory management wasn't still very underrated to this day. I think if RE0 Remake does happen, I think an inventory very similar to Resident Evil 5 should be used in the remake, while still having the ability to drop items and pick them back up, and swapping with the other character. And I know a lot of people were really like, kind of felt very weird that there wasn't an item box, and I think that's definitely one of the standout features about Resident Evil 0. So if they remade that game, I definitely would think that, no, just don't include the item box, because again, it was a key feature in Resident Evil 0, and it was a standout thing, even though it's very controversial. I would definitely think that if they could rework like some stuff about like picking up the items and stuff like that, I mean, and like, or having one items in one area and then you have to backtrack and then bring them to another area. I mean, it's definitely a drag, but I mean, it was an interesting feature, and I think it's pretty cool. But I mean, if Capcom does like end up adding an item box if they remake this game, then I'm 100% fine with that too. But my thoughts on the RE0 remake is that, will they remake this game? Honestly, I don't see it happening, because it's clear to tell since they are remaking Resident Evil 4 Remake rather than Code Veronica and Outbreak and stuff like that, because Capcom's, or basically any gaming company, is very greedy and they want money, and they know Resident Evil 4 is gonna like get them money. like if you guys know what I'm saying. But that is gonna be the end of today's video. If you guys did end up enjoying the video, please sure to leave a like on this video and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you guys have been enjoying the content as of late. A lot of you guys that watch my content aren't subscribed anyways though, so you guys just hitting that sub button is very, very appreciated. I would love you guys for an eternity. And in general, what I would have to say is that thank you guys for 350 subs. We're close to 400, so again, hitting that subscribe button would mean a lot. I hope you guys have yourselves a good day, good night, and a good sleep. Take care, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out, and much love.